My name is Elira James, and the moment that sentence ripped through the noise of Chicago O'Hare Airport, I felt the entire world stop around me. I was weaving through the terminal crowd, dragging my carry-on behind me, mentally rehearsing the weekend plans with my family in Boston. My flight was boarding in less than 20 minutes, and my dad had already texted me a picture of my mom holding a giant pot of clam chowder she made just for her future son-in-law. I shouldn't have been smiling at my phone while walking, but I was. Everything felt simple and warm, the kind of comfort that makes you believe life is finally settling into place, which is why I nearly snapped when someone grabbed my wrist out of nowhere. Not a gentle tap, not a polite excuse me. A full grab, fingers tight around my skin like she was afraid I would vanish. I spun around, ready to defend myself, but the words died in my throat. She was shaking, pale. Her voice was thin and breathless when she said, "Please don't get on that plane. You don't understand. I swear I can explain." At first, I was confused. I didn't know her. I'd never seen her in my life. But something else caught my eye, something that made my knees soften. Her left hand, a ring. My ring. The same engagement ring Darren Holt had slipped onto my finger 6 weeks ago when he told me I was the woman he wanted to grow old with. I stared at it, my heart pounding in my ears. I must have looked insane because she pulled her hand back slightly, almost apologetic, like she knew exactly what kind of knife she had just twisted into my stomach. "What are you doing with that?" I asked. My voice came out tight, clipped. "Fighting to stay steady." The woman swallowed hard. "That's what I'm trying to tell you. Please don't walk away." But I did. I took a step back, clutching the handle of my suitcase like it was the only stable thing left in the terminal. People moved around us, rushing to gates, dragging suitcases, calling out to family members, completely unaware that my life had just cracked open in the middle of Terminal C. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mom, Rinella. "Sweetheart, boarding yet? Dad is pacing like a nervous turkey." A second message from my younger brother, Taven. "Don't forget to take a picture of the ring on the plane so Mom can brag to strangers." I stared at the screen, then at the woman standing in front of me. Her dark hair was frizzy at the ends, like she had been pulling at it for hours. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked like someone who had been crying long before she found me. But none of that mattered. Not yet. Not in that first moment. All I could think was, why is she wearing my engagement ring? "Tell me your name," I said, slow and firm. She took a shaky breath. "My name is Mira Lynn." It meant nothing to me. No spark of recognition, no memory. Just a stranger saying a name that carried no weight. But her next words hit like a blow to the chest. "I know you don't know me, but we need to talk about Darren." My fiancé, the man who kissed me goodbye less than an hour ago, the man who told me, "Text me when you hit the gate, Allie, I love you." My stomach twisted. "Why are you wearing that ring?" I asked again, this time quieter, not angry, not loud, just scared. Mira held out her hand. The ring glinted under the airport lights in the exact way it glinted when Darren proposed to me on the back patio of my apartment. Same gold band, same oval diamond, same engraving inside, the same promise. On a different woman. Mira's voice shook, because he gave it to me first. My heartbeat thrashed against my ribs. The terminal suddenly felt too bright, too loud, too crowded. I could hear boarding announcements, suitcase wheels, a child crying nearby, but it all blurred behind one horrible truth. A woman wearing my engagement ring had chased me down at an airport and begged me not to board. And whatever she was about to say next, I knew it had the power to break everything. Before the airport chaos, my day had felt like the first calm moment in months. I woke up early in my Chicago apartment, sunlight slipping through the blinds, and I remember feeling strangely peaceful. I had packed the night before, folding clothes while humming to myself, thinking about how excited my mom would be to see me. It had been a while since I visited Boston, and this trip felt meaningful, not just because I missed my family, but because soon I planned to bring my fiancé, Darren Holt, to meet them. That thought alone had made me nervous in a good way. My parents had always been protective, especially my dad, Garen, who once threatened to background check any future son-in-law. My mom, Ranella, was softer but had a sixth sense about people. She kept saying she had a good feeling about Darren. She liked how he spoke to me. She liked how gently he held my hand when we visited them last month. I liked it too, or at least I thought I did. The morning of my flight, Darren came over to drop me off at the airport. He brought my favorite iced maple latte and kissed the top of my head as I climbed into the passenger seat. We drove with the windows slightly open, the breeze warm for an early fall morning. He was talking about a project he had to finish over the weekend, and I remember thinking how sweet it was that he still made time to take me. Right before he unloaded my suitcase, he leaned in and said, "Safe travels, Allie. Text me when you reach the gate." His voice was warm, steady, familiar, a voice I trusted. In the security line, I scrolled back through his texts from the night before. They were affectionate, playful, even a little silly. He joked about how my dad might interrogate him like a detective, but he didn't mind. He said he wanted to be part of my family someday, and I believed him. I called my younger brother Taven as I walked toward my gate. He made fun of the way I always overpacked and then reminded me to take a cute plain selfie so Mom could brag to her friends. I laughed, shaking my head, feeling that warm sense of belonging that only family gives. Everything felt safe, predictable, and rooted. I wasn't thinking about betrayal or secrets or shared rings. I wasn't questioning anything. I was simply a woman heading home, someone who believed the person she loved was exactly who he claimed to be. But all of that innocence shattered the moment Mira Lynn grabbed my wrist. When Mira said Darren's name, something inside me clenched so tightly I could barely breathe. My first instinct was to shake her off and walk straight to my gate, pretend this entire confrontation was some bizarre misunderstanding. But her eyes stopped me. They weren't wild or manipulative. They were exhausted, broken, the kind of broken that only comes after discovering a truth you never saw coming. I swallowed hard and asked her again, slower this time, "Why are you wearing that ring?" The way Mira's throat tightened before she answered wasn't the reaction of someone staging drama. It was the reaction of someone who wished she didn't have an answer to give. She took a step closer but kept her voice low, careful, like she knew she was walking on ground that could collapse under both of us. "Because he gave it to me first, Elira. I didn't know you existed until yesterday." Hearing her speak my name made my pulse spike because I had never introduced myself. She must have seen the confusion on my face because she quickly added, "I only know your name because I found emails, messages between you and him. I didn't go looking for them. I swear I didn't. But once I saw what I saw, I had to find you before you got too far away." My stomach tightened. "What emails?" She reached into the pocket of her jacket with trembling fingers and pulled out her phone. The lock screen photo startled me. It was Darren smiling with that same half grin he always gave me when he was trying to make me laugh. His arm was around Mira. They looked comfortable together, natural, like a couple who had shared more than one holiday. She unlocked her phone and showed me her gallery, flipping through photos with practiced familiarity. Birthday dinners, a summer barbecue, a winter cabin that looked frighteningly similar to the one he took me to in February. In one photo, he held her waist the same way he held mine. In another, he was kissing her forehead with a tenderness that twisted my insides. I took a step back, the airport lights suddenly feeling too bright. "These could be old," I managed to say, though the defense sounded weak and childish even to me. Mira shook her head. "The one you're looking at right now, that was taken 3 months ago." She swiped again. "This one, 6 weeks ago. The same day he told you he had to stay late at work." The memory rushed back instantly. That night he had canceled our dinner plans, saying a server crash kept him at the office. I had sent him takeout and he thanked me, apologizing for ruining our evening. I believed him without hesitation. Now, looking at the timestamp on her screen, I felt a cold weight settle in my chest. While I waited for him with food growing cold on my counter, he had been with her instead. "Why tell me now?" I whispered. "Why find me today?" Mira rubbed her forehead, her voice nearly breaking. "Because I only discovered you last night. We used a shared subscription service, and one of the accounts kicked me out. When I logged back in, I saw a folder labeled with your initials. I clicked it without thinking." She shut her eyes tightly. "I saw reservation emails, pictures from your engagement dinner, a message where he told you you were the missing piece in his life." My breath stuttered. That message had meant everything to me. I remembered reading it in bed, smiling like a teenager, feeling certain I had finally found the man who understood me. The idea that he sent similar messages to someone else made my skin prickle with a feeling I didn't have a name for. "I confronted him," Mira said. "I tried to ask calmly, but he panicked. He told me I was imagining things. He called me insecure. Then he shut his phone off for the night." Her voice hardened for the first time. That's when I knew something was very wrong. I searched everything. I didn't want to believe it, but the proof was everywhere. She looked at me again, pleading. "I'm not your enemy. I'm trying to save you from finding out the hard way." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly. My phone buzzed again. A call from Darren. I pressed decline without thinking. My instincts were screaming, but I couldn't tell if they were shouting at me to run from Mira or run toward the truth she was trying to hand me. She reached out, gentler this time. "Please, Elira, if you get on that plane, he'll know something is wrong. He'll delete everything. He'll spin a story. You'll never get the truth out of him." I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to throw her phone across the terminal and undo the entire moment. Instead, I forced myself to breathe. "You're saying he proposed to you?" Mira nodded slowly. 9 months ago. 9 months. My mind scrambled, trying to align the timeline. 9 months ago, he and I were still friends, flirting but nothing serious. But 6 months ago? 4 months ago? 2 months ago? The timelines overlapped. Completely. There was no gap, no break. No window where he could have ended one relationship before starting another. He had built 2 lives at the same time, and I had been too in love to see the doubling. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" Her shoulders slumped. "Because I didn't know. I only saw the truth yesterday. And when I saw your flight details in the emails, I panicked. I knew I had to catch you before you left the city." Her eyes were shiny now, but her voice was steady. "I didn't want to ruin your life. I wanted to warn you before he could do more damage to both of us." I looked around the terminal. People were laughing, talking, ordering coffee, living their normal lives. And here I was, standing in the middle of an airport with a woman who wore my ring before I ever touched it. A woman with photos, messages, and a timeline that matched every fear I had ever pushed aside. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady myself. "I don't know what to believe," I whispered. Mira nodded. "I know. That's why I want you to see everything. The messages, the dates, the receipts. I'm not trying to take anything from you. I'm trying to show you what he took from us." My phone buzzed again. A text this time. "Darren, everything okay? You're not answering." The irony almost made me laugh. I never imagined the man who told me he wanted forever would be the reason I felt like I was free-falling with no ground beneath me. Mira spoke again, softer. "Please don't get on that plane. Not yet. If you leave now, he'll cover his tracks, and you'll spend months wondering. Let's confront him together. One time. One truth. Face to face." The rational part of me said I should walk away. The emotional part said I should scream. But the part of me that needed answers, the part that had been silenced by love and hope and trust, took control. I finally found my voice. "Show me everything." And just like that, the trip to Boston became the least important thing in my life. Mira and I moved to the side of the terminal, away from the flow of rolling suitcases and boarding groups. I didn't want to sit, but my legs were trembling enough that refusing the chair felt prideful rather than practical. I lowered myself into a stiff plastic seat near a charging station. Mira sat across from me, clutching her phone like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to the ground. I inhaled slowly, but even breathing felt like a task. Everything in me was resisting the idea that I was living a nightmare in public, surrounded by families going on vacations and business travelers juggling laptops. My life was coming apart, and the world kept moving like nothing was happening. "Start from the beginning," I said. My voice surprised me. It was steady, almost clinical, like I had slipped into survival mode without realizing it. Mira nodded and began scrolling through her phone. "I'm not going to overwhelm you. I'll show you the things that matter, the things that prove he was with both of us at the same time." She turned the phone toward me again, but this time she moved slower, intentional, careful not to shove pain in my face faster than I could handle. She opened a message thread labeled Darren H. It was long. So long she had to scroll for several seconds before reaching the top. 9 months, she said quietly. We met through a mutual friend. I thought he was sweet, considerate, patient. He said he'd been hurt before and moved slow because of it. My throat tightened. He said the same thing to me the first night he opened up about his past, claiming he had trouble trusting people. Now I saw that as a perfect line for a man juggling 2 lives. Create softness. Create hesitation. Make the woman believe his carefulness is vulnerability instead of deceit. Mira continued. He introduced me to his sister. He cooked for me. He met my coworkers. He even helped my niece with her math homework once. I didn't think I had a reason to question him. Her voice trembled a little, but she kept going. Then 3 months ago, he stopped by my place and said he wanted to talk about our future. We'd been planning to move in together, and I thought he was finally ready. She paused. Instead, he proposed, right in my living room. I felt like I had been punched in the chest. 3 months ago? She nodded. He told me he wanted something solid, something real. He said he didn't want to waste any more time. The nausea rose so fast I had to grip the armrest. 3 months ago, Darren and I were spending every weekend together. He had introduced me to his coworkers. He told me he had never felt this level of comfort with anyone. And 6 weeks ago, he got down on one knee in my apartment, lighting candles and playing a playlist he said he made just for us. Why did he propose to me then? I whispered. Mira looked at me with a kind of sadness I didn't know how to interpret. I don't know. Maybe he wanted options. Maybe he wanted the illusion of commitment without giving it. Maybe he liked being adored by two people. I've thought about every explanation, and none of them makes sense. She showed me another message. 3 weeks ago. Darren. Looking at houses for us again, I can see us starting fresh. That same weekend, he was holding my hand in a garden center, telling me he loved the idea of buying a place with a backyard someday. My heart felt like it was splitting open. He said the same stuff to me, I murmured. Mira nodded like she expected it. He was careful, Elira. He didn't slip up often. But last night, when I saw your name on those emails, I knew it wasn't just me he was promising a future to. I rubbed my forehead with trembling fingers. I need to talk to him. Mira leaned forward sharply. Not on the phone, not in messages. He'll twist things. You know he will. She wasn't wrong. I knew Darren's tendencies when he felt cornered. He became overly sweet, overly apologetic, emotional in a way that made you feel like hurting him was the worst crime you could commit. I had mistaken that vulnerability for sincerity. Now I saw it for what it really was, a deflection, a shield. I need answers, I said again, but I'm not confronting him over text. What then? Mira asked. A feeling I didn't recognize settled inside me. Not anger, something colder, sharper, a kind of clarity born from betrayal. Face to face, I said. If he's lied this much, I want him to tell both of us why. Mira let out a shaky breath of relief. Good. That's what I hoped you'd say. I pulled out my phone with stiff fingers and typed a message I never imagined sending. Me. Emergency. Come to Terminal B, now. Darren replied in less than 10 seconds. Darren, what's wrong? Are you okay? Darren, I'm coming. Tell me where exactly. I told him to meet me near the seating area by the charging station. My hands were shaking. My stomach twisted like someone was wringing it out. I could feel my pulse in my teeth. Mira watched me closely. You sure you want to do this? No, I admitted. But I'm going to anyway. Those next minutes waiting for Darren were some of the longest of my life. I stared at the big windows overlooking the runway, watching planes taxi by like massive, indifferent machines. I wondered how many people on those flights were running from problems or walking straight into ones they didn't see coming. I wondered if anyone around me had ever been betrayed so cleanly, so thoroughly, that they never saw the knife until it was twisted. I kept checking my phone for updates, even though he had already sent one final message. Darren. Here. Walking in now. My mouth went dry. Mira stood up first. We stand together, she said softly. No matter what excuses he tries. I nodded, even though my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. My entire body buzzed with adrenaline and dread. And then I saw him. Darren walked toward us in his charcoal hoodie and jeans, the same outfit he wore when he surprised me with breakfast on Sunday mornings. He had that familiar, concerned look on his face. The one that used to make me feel safe, but not today. Today, everything in me recoiled. He saw me first. His expression softened with relief, but then his gaze shifted to Mira. He froze. His face drained of color, and in that moment, before a single word was spoken, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wasn't wrong to stay. I wasn't wrong to confront him. I wasn't wrong to demand the truth. This was the moment everything would change. Darren stopped walking the second his eyes locked onto Mira. It was like watching a man collide with a truth he thought he had outrun. His steps faltered, his shoulders stiffened, and that familiar confident expression he always carried dissolved into something hollow. For the first time since I met him, he looked afraid, not confused, not surprised, afraid. And that fear told me everything before he even opened his mouth. "Elira," he said quietly, like he was approaching a wild animal. "Why is she here?" His tone was gentle, the same voice he used whenever he tried to soften bad news. But I wasn't the same person who once melted at that tone. The betrayal had hardened something inside me, sharpened the edges that he used to smooth over with affection and charm. "You tell us," I replied. My voice didn't shake, but my hands did. I kept them tightly wrapped around the handle of my suitcase so he wouldn't see it. Mira didn't wait. She stepped forward with a resolve I envied. "Tell her how long you've been with me," she said. She wasn't loud. She didn't scream. She didn't cause a scene. She simply delivered the demand like a verdict. Darren blinked fast, shaking his head. "Mira, please don't start with this again. We talked about your insecurities. This is not the place." My jaw clenched. That word hit me like a slap. Insecure, a word manipulators use when the truth becomes inconvenient. A word meant to silence questions instead of answering them. "Insecurities?" Mira scoffed. "Show her the message from last week where you said you wanted to spend the holidays with my family, or the one where you told me you were shopping for houses again." Darren's eyes darted between us, searching for a path out. There was none. The truth had already surrounded him. He turned to me with a look of wounded innocence. "Allie, I don't know what she told you, but she's twisting things. She's been confused for months. I tried to help her, but she keeps making up new stories." A part of me wanted to believe him. The part that still remembered his soft touch, the morning coffees, the promises he whispered while brushing his thumb across my cheek. But that part of me was no longer in control. The evidence had choked it. "Stop," I said firmly. "Don't lie anymore. She showed me everything. Your messages, your pictures, your proposals. You said you wanted a future with both of us." His face contorted for a split second. Panic, shame, anger, all of it flashed through him before he tried to rearrange it into something sympathetic. "It wasn't like that," he said, reaching for my hand. I stepped back. That hurt him more than anything else that had happened so far. His hand dropped to his side, and the mask he always wore began to crack. "I made mistakes," he said, voice trembling. "But I didn't mean to hurt either of you." "Didn't mean to?" Mira said sharply. "You proposed to me 9 months ago. Then you proposed to her 6 weeks ago. You made 2 separate lives, Darren. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern." He swallowed hard. I was confused. I cared about both of you. The truth finally showed itself, not through proof, but through his own words. "You don't get to care about 2 women the same way, I know," I said. "You don't get to build 2 futures and expect both of us to keep waiting while you decide which life you feel like living." The airport noise around us faded into the background as Darren's composure unraveled. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing like a man caught in a trap of his own design. I was trying to figure things out. I didn't want to lose either of you. I thought I had time. "You didn't," I said. "You don't." Mira reached into her pocket and pulled off her ring. Her fingers trembled, but her voice didn't. "Here," she said, placing it in his palm. "You won't need this again." Darren stared at it, wide-eyed, as if the symbol finally held weight. Maybe the reality of losing everything had finally sunk in. He looked at me next, eyes pleading. "Elira, please, don't do this. You're different. What we had was real." It was painful to hear because part of me wanted to cling to the version of him I thought I knew. But the version I knew was a lie. The truth stood trembling in front of him. 2 women wearing the same heartbreak. I reached for the ring on my finger. The metal felt heavy, tainted. soured by everything I had learned. I pulled it off and placed it beside Mira's in his open hand. The cold metal clicked against the other ring, and Darren flinched like the sound physically struck him. "You didn't choose between us," I said, "so now you lose us both." For a moment, he just stood there, silent, shaking, holding two rings that were supposed to represent forever, but now represented nothing except the life he had broken. He whispered, "I didn't think it would end like this." "It ended the moment you decided honesty was optional," I said. Mira turned away first. I followed, and Darren stayed frozen behind us, both rings still resting in his palm like the pieces of a future he had thrown away. Walking away from Darren felt surreal, like I was moving underwater while the rest of the airport buzzed with normal life. People were pulling suitcases, laughing with relatives, juggling coffee cups, and rushing toward gates. The world didn't care that my entire future had just collapsed in the middle of Terminal B. It kept spinning like nothing had happened. But inside me, something had shifted permanently. Something had closed. Something had awakened. Mira and I didn't speak for the first few steps. We weren't holding hands or comforting each other. We didn't turn back to look at him. We simply walked away in separate but parallel lines, two women connected by betrayal and the sudden knowledge that our lives were not what we thought they were. I found a small cafe tucked against the terminal wall and sank into one of the high stools by the window. My heartbeat hadn't slowed. My hands still felt warm from adrenaline, but my mind had finally caught up to what happened. My relationship wasn't ending. It had never existed in the way I believed. That realization broke me more than the confrontation itself. You can't mourn something genuine when the foundation was a lie. Mira sat a few stools away, staring down at her hands as if they belonged to someone else. She looked older suddenly, not physically but emotionally, like betrayal had aged her the same way it had aged me in the last hour. After a moment, she whispered, "I'm sorry it had to be this way." I let out a tired breath. "It wasn't your fault. You didn't lie to me." She gave a weak, almost bitter laugh. I wish that made me feel better. I understood. Betrayal doesn't create winners. It creates survivors. I pulled out my phone and stared at the unopened texts from my family. For the first time that day, I finally felt ready to tell them the truth. I dialed my mom, and she answered on the first ring. "Sweetheart, are you boarding soon? Your dad is driving me crazy. He keeps checking the flight tracker like you're piloting the plane." Her voice was warm, motherly, overflowing with excitement. It cracked something inside me. My lips trembled as I said, "Mom, I'm not getting on the flight." There was a pause, a soft shift in her breathing. "What happened?" I looked out the cafe window at the runway, trying to tether myself to something solid. Darren wasn't who we thought he was. He was engaged to another woman at the same time. My throat tightened, and I saw proof. My mom didn't gasp. She didn't yell or say she knew something was wrong. She simply inhaled deeply, then exhaled with calm strength. "Come home, Elira. Not to Boston. Come home to us. We'll handle everything together." Her certainty steadied me. My dad's voice suddenly came into the background, asking what was wrong. My mom whispered something to him, and seconds later, he grabbed the phone. "Kiddo," he said, "we love you. Get off your feet. Drink some water. We're here." Tears welled in my eyes but didn't fall. Their support wrapped around me like a blanket. My mom spoke again. "We'll talk when you're ready. Take your time. We're proud of you for walking away." Those words hit deeper than I expected. I had always imagined heartbreak as something dramatic and loud, but this heartbreak came with clarity. Painful clarity, but clarity nonetheless. After I hung up, Mira moved to the stool beside me. "Are you okay?" she asked. "No," I said honestly, "but I will be." She nodded, looking relieved that I didn't pretend to be stronger than I was. Me too. We sat in silence for a few minutes, letting the exhaustion settle. There was no jealousy between us, no resentment, only an understanding that we had both been pulled into a lie large enough to crush us. "You know," Mira finally said, "he would have kept doing it, with us, with someone else, maybe forever." "I know," I replied. "That's why I'm glad this happened now instead of later." She offered a small smile. "I'm glad you didn't run. I'm glad you didn't either." Eventually, I gathered my things and stood. "I'm going to head home. I'll be okay." Mira stood too. "If you ever need someone to talk to who understands, you can call me." For a moment, I just looked at her, not as the woman wearing my engagement ring, not as a rival, not as a stranger, but as someone who survived the same hurricane I did. "Same to you," I said. We parted ways with quiet dignity. She walked toward the exit. I walked toward the taxi stand. Neither of us looked back. Outside, the cold wind hit my face, grounding me. I pulled out my phone and texted my brother, Taven. "No engagement announcement needed anymore. But can you pick me up from the airport? I need a hug." His reply came within 5 seconds. "Already in the car. Don't move." As I waited on the curb with my suitcase by my side, I realized something important. I wasn't walking away from love. I was walking back toward myself, toward peace, toward family, toward a future that wasn't built on lies. The storm was over, and I was finally free.